Hey there, this is Coach Jay-Z with the Lifetime Athlete, and thanks for joining me in today's video. We're going to be calling this one Jumping for Joy for Lifetime Athletes. And we're going to focus today on a few of the variations that maturing athletes can utilize with box jumps. And we're going to talk about that a bit. In fact, this is going to be one of those raw, uncut, unfiltered, organic videos. We're just going to let things roll, and there probably won't be any edits, so thanks for bearing with me as I cruise through this subject matter. So right away, it's very important to say that as we evolve through this lifespan, gaining all that maturation and wisdom, we need to preserve our youthful vitality, our elasticity. And one of the best ways to do that is with the appropriate and safe application of jumping exercise. It works on some of that fast twitch and ballistic and spring-like nature that we need to keep active in our bodies through this journey called LIFE. There are two things to consider of major importance for lifetime athletes with this type of exercise. First of all, keep it safe. Don't get hurt. That's so imperative, and that's really the first consideration that we always have. Everything is scalable, and we want to select exercises which are appropriate for each individual. And for a few, the ship may have sailed on most of this, but there's always a way to be creative and create that win, so that's what we're all about. Safety first. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is how we go about the process of getting ready to do the jumping. And if that's number two, it's got an A and a B. An A is setup and the B is warm up. So as far as setup goes, it's very important that you have a roomy enough space that should you, let's say, eat it, you're not going to bang your head into something. You've got enough room to move around. That's incredibly important. And we also want to think about the type of box we're going to use. So for most lifetime athlete applications, something like a 12 to 18 inch plyo box is really useful. And this could be a steel version like this one or one of the wooden boxes. They're great. Possibly up to 24 inches depending on your athletic ability. But if it's been a while since you've done jumping, you may definitely want to stay in this 12 to 18 inch realm. Now, going further, it's certainly reasonable to use higher jumping heights, but I'm going to recommend doing that at commercial facilities where maybe they have a turf surface and the foam boxes that you can stack. Much better option, and if you have some of those at home, well, good for you. Also, there's no shame in using a smaller box height of any type, step. That could be 3, 4, 6 inches, and these are just great. In fact, taking that a little further, there's also absolutely no shame in not using a box at all and just working on some rudimentary or elementary forms of this type of training. In fact, if you need help with that, you'd like to design a program that fits your unique body as you evolve through your lifespan. That's what I've been doing for 40 years. Reach out to me at thelifetimeathlete.com through the contact option or sign up for a coaching consultation if you think that's what you're looking for. Okay, now getting into this whole warm-up idea. We always say in our programming two things about warm-up. And first of all, it is that you should warm up as little as possible, but as much as necessary. And I think you get the gist of what that means. When we're doing this type of activity, it requires us to be fresh and ready. We don't want to do jumping exercises when we're fatigued. It's not as effective and it's not as safe. But also, we want to go through an escalation with our CNS. This is excitatory, and so we have to build to be able to get the most out of this and also to keep it safe and injury-free. So exactly what you do for warm-up, the sky's the limit, and we've got tons of resources on the website. You can just hit the search box and type in all sorts of keywords regarding warm-ups, and also with some of the stuff that we're doing today. You can look at jumping, you can look at footwork, nomenclature, drills, lots of things there as resources that are available, but you might start out with some walking, or maybe using, in this case, an air bike, or just a piece of aerobic equipment for a general warm-up for a few minutes, 2, 3, 5, 10 at the most. And then you're going to want to do a few dynamic movements. Those things could be as simple as marching in place, some leg swings, what have you. But it's never a bad idea to also do a few other movements, perhaps a step up with or without resistance. You can, if you've got the box already set up, you can use that for a Bulgarian split squat. You can do numbers of other activities with this. You can also grab a weight, and that lends itself to doing all sorts of movements like lunges, or in this case a goblet squat. And you don't really need to go through a lot of sets or seek fatigue like you would in a hypertrophy-based session. What you're trying to do in this case is just get moving, get activated, and get ready. Kettlebell swings are also excellent for working on kind of an explosion in that hinge pattern. But ultimately, when we get ready to do some jumping, we're doing this not necessarily in this case as a conditioning pursuit. So you're not really seeking fatigue or exhaustion, soreness, high volumes, buckets of sweat. We're really working on a few concentrated exposures to maintain those properties in our bodies. Now, before we get to the jumps, I'm going to mention that there are jumping strategies that each body likes to utilize, and we certainly featured those in my body type training book, Animal Fit, Unleash Your Inner Beast and Unlock Your Athletic Potential. But you can also take a look at the Animal Fit Jump Test. That's available on the website, on the Animal Fit page, but I'll also make sure that you've got access to it right here if you want it. And that will just help you to understand how different bodies perform movement problem solving and be able to do their jumping. So let's say you've done all of that warm up and we just want to do a few specific more things. What I would like to do with most folks is a little bit of skater bound maybe, and so we'll kind of work on that. And you can obviously do any of these things with the vigor or intent that is right for where your body's at. I like a few hops, so that's a single leg movement, same foot to same foot in place. That works on activating our elasticity just a bit more, as do pogo jumps, and those are vertical jumps coming out of the ankle. Doing all those kind of sub-maximum, just getting ready. Those who are inclined can also do a few squat jumps or counter movement jumps. Again, you don't have to be too vigorous with this, but let yourself get ready and then settle down to focus on what you're going to be doing with your box. Now, there are three variants, major variants in these box jumps that we talked about in the Animal Fit Jump Test. I'm just going to go over them really quickly here. You've got an approach jump, you've got an impulse jump, and you've got a counter movement jump. So I'm just going to demonstrate a few of those, and we'll see what that looks like. I'm going to make sure I'm going to be in your camera view. So for an approach jump, ironically, you wouldn't think of this, but let's do this one first. It's a running approach with a single foot takeoff. And so I don't have a lot of space here, but just imagine that I had taken a bigger run at this, and then I just land on the box in that manner. You can experiment with which foot you like to take off with. From a training perspective, you can practice taking off on both foot, but you're probably going to notice one is better. I'm just showing you that one more time. We've got that running start, and then we just fly up onto the box. So this technique can allow you actually to jump very high when it's appropriate or safe to do so. That's one version of an approach jump. Another one is to take kind of what we would like to see in basketball, volleyball. A lot of times when we're training those athletes, you've got a penultimate step and a block step, and so you kind of step into your jump thusly. And one of the things that we try to do in our athletic applications is work on accelerating through that jump. So as we're coming in, we're going to start moving faster to the amount of compression that we want, and then we want to move as explosively, as quick as we can getting up there. So the wrong way to do this would be just to kind of step into this and then jump. It works, but you're going to be more effective if you come at it a bit more athletically. Now you'll probably notice, partly because of how I've got the camera set up, but I'm also coming in at an angle. That helps because we can wind or twist the fascia in our body to get a little more spring-like effect. Another thing I'm doing is I'm going from high to low, as well as doing all those things, building speed as I go through it. So one last time on this style of approach jump, and you can see how that's performed. Now, as I catch my breath, that you can also do kind of a broad jump or submaximal broad jump into this. And so that might look like I'm just going to set for my broad jump, and there's my box jump. So all of these things can be done. Now, today you're noticing that with every jump, I'm stepping back off. So I'm jumping on and stepping back off. That's because of what this video is all about. We're just trying to make jumping accessible for most folks. So things like repeat jumps on and off, depth drops, depth jumps. I'm going to save that for a different video. Those are more intensive plyometrics, and today we're looking at the extensive style. So the final thing you can look at and explore is a counter movement jump, and it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to do a counter movement or flex and then jump onto the box. Now, that can be done with a slow, deep counter movement, which is especially good for athletes who are very strong, very muscular. They like to use those deep flexion angles, very muscle dominant and driven in their force production. You can also do a rapid counter movement, which is more of a quick drop to elicit the stretch reflex. That will work. Now, I think I may have gotten out of order, but the other category of jumping, in addition to approach jumps and counter movement jumps, are impulse jumps. And those are basically where we quickly stiffen the body and get a rapid return of that ground reaction force to bounce up onto our object. And again, some of these are just going to vary from one athlete to the next. So if I do that, I'm going to square up here, and I'm just going to think about that impulse and concentrate it into the balls of my feet and consequently just bounce right up there. I have seen athletes who like to do this where they kind of get their rhythm going and then they hit it at a certain point. That's good too. Or you can even come out of a pogo jump to hit it. So all these things can work for you. Now, one thing that you can explore in your jumping, again, if you've got a safe setup and the traction is good and there's no risk of slipping and all those things, you can explore your vertical jumping ability a bit as well. So the real difference there is, for a good vertical jump, you probably don't need to use the highest box that you could get onto. Use something that's in the mid-range, but try to spring up and land with straight legs on the box. So that would be, I'm going to use that approach jump because that's my preferred style. But if I just kind of come in quick and compress, I should be able to just fly up and land on the box. And there's a value in doing this, especially if you're training for sports that require a high vertical leap, high overhead. Again, basketball, volleyball, among those. See it in football quite a bit. Many other sports, but it's also an athletic skill, even jumping up to grab a branch or a pull-up bar. Very good to be able to do that. Now, the other style, which you kind of see more popular in, let's say, a gym setting or certainly a CrossFit application with the box jump, is doing a very flexed landing. So you actually don't have to get off the ground very high at all if you're good at flexing the body up and landing in a squatted position. One key trick to doing this is before you get started, you might consider, I'm going to do a few hip flexing exercises. That could be resistance with a band or cable done unilaterally. You can also do that in hanging, various styles of hanging lifting to help work on being able to just hike everything up quickly. The other thing is you might do a few reps of ATG squatting or just holding there as a stretch to work on getting the body to be comfortable in those depths of position. But then when you jump, you don't have to get very high at all, and you can land quite squatted. Again, not for today, but sometimes in a conditioning application, we might do something like, and so forth. But those are a few ideas about box jumping and also about the value of jumping to maintain elasticity through the lifespan. It's very important that we follow all these safety procedures, progress gradually. You only need to do a few minutes of it once or twice a week in most athletes, maybe 3 times depending on where you're at and what are your goals. But that's a little bit of a primer on box jumping, and thanks so much for being with me today. If you like this type of content, feel free to check out all the resources that are available at the Lifetime Athlete. You can find podcasts, articles, videos, books, and the coaching services, and all of that is also available at your fingertips in the Lifetime Athlete app. Thanks again. Coach Jay-Z signing out.